George Pickens has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Wait a second. The Steelers receive a 2026 third-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. Okay, I don't know if they're trying to accrue picks or if this was the best offer that they were to get, but they send Pickens and a sixth-rounder to the Dallas Cowboys. In that graphic jersey swap that D-Bone did there is nasty. I mean, that is great work there, D-Bone.
Awesome.
Great work, D-Bone. That is a filthy picture right there. But George Pickens, I thought, me personally, as soon as DK Metcalf gets brought into the Pittsburgh Steelers, I immediately go, okay, this means George Pickens is gone. A lot of people are like, well, why would that mean that? Now they have another weapon. Now they got a second wide receiver. They've been looking for a second wide receiver. Why would, as soon as they get another wide receiver, why would they try to get rid of the guy that they have? And it's just like, I think there's a lot potentially going on in that room. That feels like a tough room. And, on Madden, you don't have to worry about humans. Okay, on Madden, it's just a rating. In fantasy football, whenever you're drafting somebody, you're not drafting the humans and whether or not they would get along. You're drafting the upside, the capability. In Madden, it's like, what is their best day? That is their number. Humans becoming a team is the most important part of a successful football franchise. I'd assume any sport, but it's definitely in the NFL. With the way things have gone with George Pickens in Pittsburgh, adding in DK Metcalf, with how things were going with DK in Seattle, that just felt like too much TNT for me in one particular room when there's only one football on the field. I assumed GP was going to get traded. I know that there's a lot of teams that are very interested in George Pickens, so I assume that would be something that would be an easy move to get done. Now, allegedly, the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers started this conversation before the draft when Jerry Jones came out and said, I got a couple of substantive moves that I'm looking to make, either before the draft or after the draft, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And they go, what does that mean? Well, apparently what we have learned now is Jerry Jones is talking to the Steelers. Was that the first time the Steelers and he had a conversation? And he said, where's the microphone? Where's the microphone? Give me a microphone. Yeah, I just talked to a guy that can do things. Omar Khan, you ever heard of him? I got a big move. Has this been the plan all along for the Dallas Cowboys to bring in George Pickens? Has the plan been to move on from George Pickens? How long has that been the plan? There's so many more questions. But what I do know is George Pickens is a dog whenever he's on the field, when he wants to be. There's obviously clips and moments from his career thus far that are going to be questioned. And if he was to be playing like the way he plays in the NFL, in college, whenever he would be going through the draft, there'd be a lot of people nitpicking a lot of the decisions that he made on the field and things that he said and done off the field. With that being said, upside through every roof that you've ever seen. If you can get him to buy in, and if you can get him to love his team, and you can get him in an offense, Shoddy and the boys are going to have to figure that out down there with Dak. If you can get him an offense that he is going to do well in, he has the chance to be megastar. So I assume that the Steelers view this as a win because they're going to move in a different direction. And if I'm George Pickens, I think I'm pretty excited for a new start, fresh start as well, especially down there in Dallas. AP Tone, obviously diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you thought it was going to be DK, GP, Freiermuth, even Warren in there. You thought that was going to be the case. I think a lot of people had hopes for that. I think in the building there was a decision on, is this sustainable? Yep. Is this sustainable for 18 weeks, 17 games with the roller coaster that happens throughout a football season?
Yeah, I think my whole thing yesterday was that 2025 Steelers fan me was bummed out because, yes, I wanted to see all those guys play together. Was it going to work out? Who knows? It was going to be electric. It was going to be fireworks, whether it was good or bad. 2025 me was very excited to see this offense as a whole, potentially with Aaron throwing to these guys. 2026 and moving forward me thinks is a very smart move. They were never going to pay George. He's going into a contract year. This was his final year. They were never going to pay DK 30 and then pay George 25 to 30. And like you said, he was a first-round talent coming out. He fell to the second round because of some of the stuff that you've heard about George, about showing up late to games and stuff like that. I just don't think the Steelers organization wanted to deal with that anymore. Now, listen, the Steelers fan base was not happy at all yesterday about this. Now, if you looked at it with a level head, you could have been like I was 2026 moving forward. We're never gonna pay this guy. We're gonna get a third-round pick. We now have 12 picks going into the 2026 draft that is in Pittsburgh. 3 third-round picks now in that draft to potentially move up, get your future. But just the whole thing, this was always going to be the case. I think this was the smartest move moving forward for the team. I know a lot of people are pissed about it, but 2025, were you really going to win the Super Bowl? Was he going to help you win the Super Bowl? Maybe, probably not. So I think this was the smartest move.
Well, I saw a little Aaron Rodgers derangement syndrome, where
his fault.
He I don't even know if he knows George yet, but what he likes, he's not even on the Steelers. what he likes from a wide receiver is certainly something that George is not. So Aaron's going to want him to be moved. So Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and the Rooney family said, this guy's not even on our team yet, but there's a chance that he doesn't like you, so we're going to – there's people saying that. We are not making that up. That was actually said by people. And maybe a conversation was said about how he operates and whether or not it is still going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for the long haul. Like, are we going to pay him to be a long one? Maybe we can get a couple pieces for this that can help our future. But I will say this about George Pickens. If he's able to hit that next level, lock in and everything like that, you're talking about game breaker, game wrecker. I'm happy to hear the Dallas Cowboys still have hope that that is the case. And hopefully he'll be able to accomplish it. George Pickens is a Dallas Cowboy. Is this what Jerry Jones was referring to before the draft when he said, I'm up to something here? I got a little something going on. I'm thinking about two substantive trades or whatever it is. Substantive trades. Maybe before the draft, maybe after the draft. Shit, I'm up in next year. Who knows? There's something coming. I'm cooking it. That is what he was talking about this entire time. And when did the Steelers decide they were going to move on from George Pickens, you think, and send him anywhere, let alone to the Dallas Cowboys?
All right, first the Steelers part of it. So they trade for DK Metcalf, obviously big trade, kind of beef up their receiving core. And, if you look at it, it's like teams rarely have like two great receivers. It's hard, right? I mean, the Bengals do, but look at what it took for the Bengals to have those two and then pay both of them. Usually what teams do is they have one great one and other young ones or complementary, because it's like to allocate that much resources, it's a challenge. You can do it, but it's a challenge. And so it seems the Steelers wanted to hang on to George Pickens. They wanted to keep George Pickens, but there was a price where it's like, all right, at some point, this is worth it, right? Because if they weren't going to pay him, which by trading him, they made it clear, like they were not looking to pay this guy the extension price, then it's like, if he leaves as a big-time free agent, he's worth a third-round pick compensatory. So they basically locked that in now, and they trade him to the Cowboys, who were looking, since, you're right, this was before the draft. I actually thought this was going to get done before the draft. And, like, I thought, because usually teams want to do it for the draft picks, then they make the draft picks, and then, like, that's your trade. Didn't get done for whatever reason. The Cowboys weren't able to get a receiver. Like, if Tetero and McMillan was there at 12, maybe this trade wouldn't have happened. I think it probably wouldn't have. But they didn't get the receiver they wanted. They make the trade, get a big receiver, too. It's a gamble, but big time talent for the Cowboys.
George is so good whenever he's playing. It's just so everything else. Are they able to get him to buy in? New head coach, first-time head coach now in Dallas with him on the team. It's something you would have to monitor. We will as football fans. But if him and Dak get on the same page and he rolls down there as a Dallas Cowboy, which he might feel more comfortable as a Cowboy than as a Steeler, it's like George Pickens has a chance to be mega star. Primetime George Pickens every week is what the Dallas Cowboys are. It's like there's a chance GP becomes a mega star here. Mulligat is his agent, so there's a chance he gets paid a mega amount of money as well.
I mean, the whole thing is a little bit funny because Jerry Jones went and did the whole, like, I don't know, Micah Parsons' agent, and then it's like, all right, like, well, Pickens got the same agent. I don't know, he's one of the, most big-time agents in the NFL. I assume he'll figure it out eventually.
Jerry definitely knows who Mulligat is. He's the guy that signed the Deshaun Watson $200 million guaranteed deal.
He was probably very mad about that.
Oh, yeah, I would assume. That's what Mulligat does. That's Mulligat to football. And George Pickens has an opportunity here to change the trajectory of his career and his life. If you have one great season on prime time, 10, 11 times? Yeah. You have a chance to do it all. So I hope it works out for George. Hope it ends up working out for the Steelers there. George Pickens has a chance to elevate that team down there, though. We all know that. Yeah. We all respect that. We all kind of expect that, I think.
It's just like Shoddy has been in this league for a long time. He's talking culture, and, like, there's all eyes on this guy. I got to go back to the way they hired him. So unorthodox. Mike McCarthy's contract runs out, and they didn't do the full search. They didn't sit down with Ben Johnson. They didn't sit down with Cliff Kingsbury. They didn't sit down with all these different guys. They did a very limited search, and it was basically like on Friday at 6 o'clock, we're hiring Brian Schottenheimer, who's been here the last few years, whether you like it or not, and that's kind of how it's done, and it's like, trust us, we got this. Well, now you've got Dak making $60 million coming off an injury, and you've got, of course, a bunch of question marks with Zach Martin no longer on the team being the leader in the offensive line room. So there's all these question marks, and I think George Pickens is a piece to this. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Shoddy and it's going to be Dak and whether they can get it done when it matters.
Okay, I'm excited for Shoddy to figure it out. Go ahead, AJ.
Shregs, do you have any idea how long they've been shopping this? Like how long this has been going on? We've heard Jerry make comments in the past. They were working on some big things before and during the draft. And also, second part, like, do you know how George Pickens feels at all about this? Was he okay moving on? Was he okay getting moved?
I don't know, and I wouldn't know it from the player perspective at this moment. But I think from what I've gathered, hearing around the league, that like Dallas has opened arms in a wide way and are really happy to have him now. Is this what the trade was? I think so. The fact that T-Mac went 8th overall, Ted Arroyo McMillan to Carolina, they weren't going to reach on Matthew Golden. They weren't going to reach on Ibuka just to get a wide receiver. So instead they took Booker, the offensive lineman who's going to play center for them and is an absolute dog. And then they said, okay, we'll address this here. But the story I got was this was going on before the draft. It kind of cooled off, and then late on Tuesday night, that's when the calls really started coming in, and they put this thing to bed. That's why CeeDee Lamb had that tweet. Like, it was kind of known that something was happening late Tuesday night, and it was announced Wednesday morning.
And I think George unfollowed the Steelers on some social media platforms, which is 2025 indicator of like, yep, hey, something's about to happen. So good luck to George down there in Dallas.